Regular listeners have for years looked forward to appearances by my next guest. Larry Allen is a seasoned federal sales and marketing executive, former director of the Coalition for Government Procurement. His regular Federal Drive appearances, though, have come to an end, at least for now, because he's taking a job under the Trump administration as director of the Office of Governmentwide Policy at the General Services Administration. On the morning before inauguration, we checked in. And Larry, you're going into the very thing you've been analyzing and sort of butting heads with for so many years.
Tom, there's no small amount of irony in that. I've worked with GSA for over 30 years, to the point where even some people in GSA would be surprised to hear that I've never previously worked at the agency. But I'm really looking forward to the opportunity to come in and make a difference.
And you and I have often talked about IT procurement. But OGP, the Office of Governmentwide Policy, has a much broader portfolio, including, I think, something you're interested in that is the Federal Building Service and the policies there, too?
It does. It has policies for the Federal Building Services. Tom, it also oversees IT policy, basically serves as kind of the field army for a lot of what the Office of Management and Budget wants to do. This office has more bodies and more people. And of course, near and dear to my heart, acquisition policy, which is something that I really want to focus on.
So the Office of Information and Regulatory Affairs to some degree, and the Office of Federal Procurement Policy, OFPP, two smallish pieces within OMB. That is who you're going to interact with a lot, I would imagine.
I think that's right. This is a very OMB-facing organization. Looking forward to working closely with the folks that I know in the Office of Federal Procurement Policy and OIRA, as well as meeting whoever comes in that's new. New people, lots of energy, Tom. So I'm anticipating a quick start.
And how do these things come about? They call you, you call them. I mean, they know who you were, I guess, the landing teams for GSA.
Well, right. So, ironically, it's you work on projects through your career and you come into contact with people on Capitol Hill, people in the administration. And at one meeting or another, somebody says, well, how about this guy? I was like, well, I don't know, give him a call. The next thing you know, my phone rings and the rest, as they say, is history. So it's one of those things where if you hang around long enough and talk to enough people, your name bubbles up to the top, and it should be exciting.
And this is not one of those types of positions or those types of policies which are overtly political in general. I mean, there's different attitudes towards contractors and their role depending on the administrations, but nobody ever really reduces federal contracting, regardless of whether they're Republican or Democrat. And so it's probably a nice feeling to go into something that's not going to be highly political in the sense of, energy secretary or something.
Yeah, my experience in government procurement, Tom, is exactly that. This is not really a partisan area of government operation. I've been fortunate to work with people of all political stripes over the course of my career, people who really, generally speaking, want to do the right thing. Occasionally, you'll get somebody who wants to play a game of gotcha. But again, that you can't really identify those people by a specific partisan stripe because they come in all shapes and sizes. But generally, on a day-to-day basis, this is something where you're just trying to inject a little common sense, bring down some overhead for the taxpayer, improve some efficiency in how the government acquires things and operates its technology and buildings. And that's, all things that I think everybody can get behind.
We're speaking with Federal Sales and Marketing Larry Allen, speaking before he is to enter the administration, this interview taking place just before inauguration the other day. And this job, OGP, wasn't always political. It was a career job at some point. But when did it become a appointee job?
Tom, that's a good question. I think this became an appointee position in the first Trump administration, and it stayed on as an appointee position through the Biden administration. I've been fortunate enough to talk to some of my predecessors who've been in this position. During those times, they've offered some good insight. It's always good to learn from people who've been there where you're going. So and of course, I know a number of people in this office, so I'm hoping for a good transition for myself and be able to get off to a fast start.
Well, being at GSA, you won't have any trouble getting office supplies on the first day.
No, I think I might know a thing or two about that.
And you could pack of number 2 pencils is not that expensive anyway if you have to lay it out yourself. And I guess my question is, do you have any idea yet what it is they want to get done first as you're coming in? Do they say, here's what we want to happen here, or are you waiting to get all that download?
So I think, generally speaking, Tom, you can anticipate that this organization is going to focus on a lot of things that GSA traditionally focuses on. I think there's going to be a real interest in upgrading public buildings. There's going to be have to be a balance struck between public buildings and the potential. We haven't really talked about this, but the potential for getting more people to go back into an office, we'll have to see how that works itself out. It's going to be something where, we're looking for efficiencies, what can be wrung out of the process, how can you improve the internal structures inside the agency. GSA has a lot of old technology, even though they've tried to upgrade it for probably the last 8 years. My understanding is that there's a lot of work that still has to be done. So there's going to be plenty to do and probably not a lot of time to do it. So we're going to have to work smartly.
Now, in the earlier Trump administration, they had issued an executive order that all construction for federal buildings shall be in the classical style, I think they put it. No plans yet that you're aware of to chop off the front of the Health and Human Services building and put a neoclassical colonnade there instead of the brutalism.
I certainly have not heard anything like that, Tom. Public buildings is one of those areas that is of interest to me, but more of my experience lies in the acquisition and policy sides. I have not heard anything like that. So we'll have to see what they do. But I do think that there's a real interest in this administration for making downtown Washington, the federal part of it, a city that everybody can be proud of. So whether you get a specific type of facelift or not, the overarching idea is to make it a place where people like to come to work and like to come to visit. Cleaner, safe, all of the things that are kind of motherhood and apple pie.
And you had relocated your family to Florida, and you'll be under the sometimes people don't relocate to relocate to Washington to take over jobs in the federal government. These jobs often have a 2 to 4 year, life in reality, but you'll be living in Washington and going to work there.
I think I'd better do that. I think that sets the right tone. If you're going to be in charge of an organization, you should be at the organization physically as much as possible. So despite the fact that I have truly enjoyed 18 months in Florida and have to come back to Washington in 20-degree weather, I will be back in, because I think if you're going to be leading a group of people who you expect to be there physically, you have to be there physically. So that is exactly what I'm planning on doing, and hopefully I'll get down to Florida every now and then.
All right. Well, we do know that the GSA has a pretty good public affairs operation. It's been a pleasure to work with them, so hopefully they'll make you available in your new job to us, and we'll check in again.
Tom, it's been fantastic. I've really enjoyed the opportunity to talk with you and reach your listeners, and I hope that they've learned something from me. And again, I hope they have happy selling.
Federal sales and marketing consultant Larry Allen, we spoke just before inauguration, after which he became the director of the Office of Governmentwide Policy at the General Services Administration. We'll post this interview at federalnewsnetwork.com/Federal Drive. Hear the Federal Drive on your schedule. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.